Thank you for your attendance for watching this press conference. Today, I announce that effective tomorrow, Tuesday, September 1st, 2020, the Repatriation and Mixed Status Families Amendments to the Bermuda Immigration and Protection Act 1956 will be brought into force. In addition, effective Monday, September 14th, 2020, the Department of Immigration will be receiving applications for the matters covered under this legislation. As a background, please note that this is not a new initiative. On March 16th and 18th, 2020, the legislation was approved by the House of Assembly and the Senate respectively. The legislation received royal assent on March 19th, 2020. These amendments were the product of a collaborative effort from both sides of the political aisle and was passed in a bipartisan manner. The delay in bringing this legislation into force was due to COVID-19 and to allow the Department of Immigration time to address operational and process issues to ensure that persons applying under this legislation would have improved experience and that the applications could be processed quickly. The government stated in the 2018 throne speech that it would enact legislation to address the issue of persons born to Bermudians overseas who were ineligible for Bermuda status, and also the plight of many mixed status families as part of immigration reform. Some of the guiding principles used in crafting these amendments included the desire to ensure the law did not negatively impact existing persons who have Bermudian status but was fair, was in alignment with the European Convention of Human Rights, and did not lead to separation of mixed status families. The two primary aims of the legislation are to correct the fact that Bermudians experience difficulty obtaining Bermuda status for their loved ones who are born overseas, and the current immigration law is unfair for some families in Bermuda because it creates differences in rights between family members, with some family members having no rights even though they were born in Bermuda. There is significant interest within the community regarding this legislation, and today I hope to assure the public that the government understands the human aspect of this important subject. We understand that this is not simply about the passage of a piece of legislation amending the act from 1956, but it relates to matters like legally residing in Bermuda, working in Bermuda, purchasing land in Bermuda, and being free to fully participate in Bermuda life. These are all matters that impact people in a deep and personal way and ties directly to their hopes and aspirations for a life in this country. For persons impacted by this, of all colors, backgrounds, and socio-economic classes, this represents an opportunity for them to obtain the same legal standing as their brothers, sisters, or parents. In many cases, this would allow them, after many years of uncertainty, to finally have official documentation to prove that the place of their birth and the only place that they have ever called home is indeed their home. For those who may not know, a mixed status family is a family where one or more parents has Bermudian status or holds a permanent resident certificate, but their son, daughter, or spouse does not have either Bermuda status or hold a permanent resident certificate. Another example would be 3 siblings born in Bermuda, but due to the date of birth, one sibling would have status and the other 2 siblings would not. There is no typical scenario that holds true for every mixed status family. The individual circumstances will differ by person and by family. To better assist the public to understand the types of situations persons may be in, it is only possible to provide examples of the 2 issues the legislation seeks to address. Number 1, repatriation, and 2, mixed status families. The repatriation issue is a problem of the burden of paperwork Bermudians must complete for their children to obtain Bermudian status when those children are born overseas. Moving forward, for children born overseas to a Bermudian parent, the parent of these children will not be required to prove that they were domiciled in Bermuda at the time of the child's birth for up to 2 generations of the children born overseas. What this means is that if a Bermudian has a child born overseas, the child is automatically Bermudian at the birth without the need to fulfill any requirements. And if the child born overseas in turn has a child of its own, the second generation born overseas would also be Bermudian from birth. To address this issue retrospectively, the legislation was not changed. However, for a child born overseas prior to the commencement of this legislation, although the requirements remain for the Bermudian parent to prove that they were domiciled in Bermuda at the time of the birth, the Department of Immigration is streamlining the process to make it less burdensome for Bermudians to apply and be granted Bermudian status. The mixed status families issue addresses 3 problems. Problem 1 is the issue of 2 siblings born from the same parent in Bermuda but on different dates. However, one child has acquired Bermudian status and the other has no status whatsoever. Problem 2 is the issue of a child born of Bermudian parents that has not qualified for Bermuda status because at the time he was eligible to apply, he was either too young or too old. Problem 3 is the issue of a permanent resident certificate holder under one portion of the Act are able to pass on the PRC to their children, but other PRC holders granted under another portion of the Act are not able to do so. The solution in the legislation amendments allows persons with no normalized immigration status to qualify for Bermuda status or a PRC. In the case of a person obtaining PRC, a 2-year window will allow for the children of PRC holders to obtain a permanent resident certificate. The 2-year period will run from September 2020 to August 2022. After this 2-year period, the legislation will revert back to normal. Issues related to residing in Bermuda, working and owning property are issues that are very personal in nature. Persons are eager to apply and to have their situation normalized. Before we become inundated with telephone calls and emails from the public asking about their particular circumstances and if they will be eligible to apply, please note the following. It is not possible to provide a specific answer to an individual who has a specific set of circumstances. In the absence of a complete submission, however, frequently asked questions will be produced to serve as a guide. Each applicant will be determined based on the information presented and on the merits. I encourage you to review all the information that will be released in the coming days, if you believe you are eligible, please apply. Today I have provided a lot of information and the government intends to provide more detailed information over the course of the next several days. Because we know the public will have further questions, our plans are as follows. We will launch a page on the Immigration Department's website that will provide an explanation of mixed status families and the type of persons eligible to apply, application forms that may be downloadable, the list of fees, instructions on how to remit payment, frequently asked questions, and contact information. We will also run radio adverts to inform the public of this initiative. We will also release infographics that explain the pertinent points outlined today on multiple media channels. We will also hold a follow-up Facebook Live chat on this topic next week to further address the public's questions. Ultimately, these legislative changes are intended to bring Bermuda in line with international standards or law and policy. The Progressive Labour Party government was elected with a mandate to lead We took the approach of bipartisan collaboration to make changes to our immigration policy. The mandate of the Ministry of Labor is to have more persons living and working in Bermuda. These changes fit into that mandate. The certainty for mixed status families will help our economy by allowing more persons to participate and invest in our local economy. Most importantly, this change will allow persons who were born to Bermudian parents up until now were unable to get status to finally be able to get status so that they can repatriate to Bermuda and to help the Bermudians here build our economy. Before I close today, I must offer my thanks to the Department of Immigration, who have worked tirelessly over the last several months since the reopening of the department following shelter in place. There was a significant volume of applications that had accumulated. The department has diligently worked through this significant bottleneck. In addition, with the launch of the one-year residential certificate, additional operational duties have been assumed. This is at the same time the department is making substantial changes to improving process. At the time the department is making substantial change to improve processes. I acknowledge the efforts of the Acting Chief Immigration Officer, Ms. Marita Grimes, for her efforts up to this point. There is still much to be done in immigration reform, and as the Minister responsible for immigration, I have great interest in continuing the work to improve processes within the department, as it is critical to the supply of labor, as one of the important inputs for economic growth. We very much encourage Ms. Grimes and the entire immigration team to continue to work to improve processes and therefore overall customer experience. Now the department faces a new challenge as the volume of applicants under the repatriation and mixed status families legislation is expected to be significant. We will provide further details on the application process and on the expected turnaround times. However, it is sufficient to say that at this time we will fully examine every application, and this will take time. Thank you. I will now take your questions.
Good afternoon, Minister Hayward. Thanks for your statement this morning. I guess just to start off, what is the purpose of having a 2-year window for applicants to apply?
In terms of the permanent resident certificates and passing it on to their dependents, what we thought possible is to have a controlled window. It is something that we can certainly review further in the future, but we want to see what the volume of numbers were in this first go around.
Okay. Is the government any closer to looking at legislation that would allow people who are born in Bermuda but without Bermudian parents to apply for status?
Certainly, we were looking at all immigration issues under the umbrella of immigration reform. And so we still would have the bipartisan immigration committee looking at other matters pertaining to immigration.
Due to COVID, I can imagine there might be some delays with the volume of applications received. To streamline this process, will the applications be available online?
That is the aim, to have the applications downloadable from the immigration's website.
How many people do you anticipate applying? Do you have a rough idea?
I don't have a rough estimate at this time. But initial indications would be that typically around 1,000 persons.
Afternoon, Minister.
Good afternoon.
I guess piggybacking on Jasmine's question there, in terms of countries that people might be from, can you speak about anything of the makeup of the mixed status families, even in the most general terms?
So when we look at it, part of it is the repatriation piece, which would be persons born to Bermudians. Some of those persons reside in the UK and other persons reside in the US. The PRCs, they will be the same original nationality of their parents, and so if we had the demographic makeup of the PRCs, then it will be consistent for the children of those individuals.
Righto. Just a little separately, but you did touch upon the 1-year residency.
Mhm.
Do you have any up-to-date numbers on how many people have applied for that?
We will be releasing up-to-date numbers at the end of the week.
Is there any thought on enhancing that program? It's looking like it's being quite successful. If there's more ways of getting people to come in and shelter from COVID here and work?
So under the remit of the Immigration Department, we are looking at how we can amend other policies to encourage persons to reside in Bermuda.